Good morning. Hi, I am Pam Fox. Thank you for being here. So today's video is going to be more of a discussion video. Last week at the Institute for Integrative Nutrition, we studied microbiotics, energetics, and high carb diets, which is what I happen to be on, a high carb diet. And I usually tell people I'm on a vegan diet or a whole foods plant-based diet, which essentially is a high carb diet because plant foods, by definition, are primarily composed of carbohydrates. So you have, in plant foods, you have three macronutrients. You have carbohydrate, you have protein, and you have fat. In most plant foods, not all, but most, the primary nutrient or macronutrient is carbohydrate. With the exception of foods like olives, avocado, coconut, nuts, and durian. So these are some plant foods that are very high in fat. But all the rest of the plant foods are really, really high in carbohydrates. So when you're on a vegan diet or you're on a whole foods plant-based diet, you're on a high carb diet. And because there's no animal foods or junk foods, well, we're not supposed to, you shouldn't eat junk foods. I eat junk foods. I wish I wouldn't, but I do. Because you don't eat animal foods, then you're also on a low fat diet because your meat, dairy, and eggs are high in fat. So I'm on a high carb, low fat diet. And the reason I wanted to bring this up for a discussion today, and if you're not a student at IIN, please, I would encourage you and invite you to watch this video and to join in. I'm going to ask a question that we can hopefully start a discussion below. And if not, maybe this is just something for you to consider. I hope that you will consider what I have to say and at least think about it. I think it's really good information. Before I get started though, I have a couple things I want to talk about regarding high carb diets, but I want to do a quick shout out first. So I had a birthday a couple of weekends ago, and I got these great cookbooks from a couple of my girlfriends. And last week I'd done a video saying, I was talking about the 5 love languages and how receiving gifts was the least of my 5 love languages. So I just wanted to clear that up. I love to get gifts. Everyone loves to get gifts. It just so happens when you go and you take the 5 love languages quiz, it will rank your 5 love languages in order, and receiving gifts just happened to have come in 5th for me. So I love these books. Sharon and Aaron, thank you so much for those. And I love getting gifts. So I just want to clear that up. I don't want anyone to stop giving me gifts. You can ask my husband. I love getting gifts. Anyway, so back to high carb diets. So this last week, the reason I was thinking about this and really wanted to have a discussion was because last week over at the Health Coach Training Program Facebook group, the question was posed, about high carb diets and, what is your experience on high carb diets and how do you feel about high carb diets? And I read all of your comments and the same kind of pattern, or I was just getting kind of the same message over and over and over from many of the comments, and that was that high carb diets are bad. A lot of comments like, I was on a high carb diet and I gained weight, or I can even look at a carb, and I get fat, or carbs are the devil, this kind of thing. And so yeah, that's what kind of inspired me to talk about this. And hopefully, you'll, like I said before, at least consider what I have to say. And I would love to have you join in the conversation below if you have any experience with this. So 2 things. The first thing is, do carbohydrates make you fat? Let's go back to what a carbohydrate is. So again, within all plant foods, you have your carbohydrate, you have a little bit of protein, and you have a little bit of fat. Again, with the exception of those higher fat plant foods like olives and avocado. But all the rest have carbohydrate, a little bit of protein, and a little bit of fat. So, and what is carbohydrate? Well, the carbohydrate in those plant foods is there to give us energy. It is our body's #1 preferred fuel source. So the carbohydrate within the plant foods is there to give us energy. And it's really a quite amazing thing if you stop and think about it, kind of step back and look at the big picture. Look at the earth and the foods that it provides in the form of plants. So the food, you know, the earth just comes up out of the ground. You know, the fruit drips from the trees. It's really quite an incredible thing the way the earth just provides this food for us. And then we take a look at our bodies and our body's needs and its requirements. We require carbohydrate, protein, and fat. And within those plants, again, you have carbohydrate, a little bit of protein, and a little bit of fat. And with our bodies, we require carbohydrate, a little bit of protein, and a little bit of fat. So there's this perfect harmony and simpatico that is taking place here that we can't disregard and say, you know, that carbohydrates are bad. Carbohydrates are what we require, and carbohydrates is what the earth provides. And so then the question again is, you know, do carbohydrates make us fat? A couple of points I want to make about that. One is a process called de novo lipogenesis, that takes place within the human body if we overconsume carbohydrate. Now, pay close attention here, because the definition for overconsuming carbohydrate within de novo lipogenesis, I wrote this down. This is kind of mind-blowing. They've done a lot of studies on this de novo lipogenesis in humans and the ability of the human body to convert carbohydrate into fat. Because that's what we all say and what we've all heard, right? I had an argument with my husband about this when we first got married. And he's like, no, that's not true. And I'm like, yes, it's true. I've read it everywhere. The body converts sugar into fat. It converts carbohydrate into fat. And when I use the word sugar and carbohydrate, they are somewhat of the same thing, because the body converts that carbohydrate into glucose, which is sugar. Again, our body's number one preferred fuel source. So anyway, getting back to this de novo lipogenesis studies that they've done on this, they fed people 5,000 calories a day of a high carb diet. So very high carb foods, what we would consider high carb foods, but low in fat. So low in dietary fat, high in dietary carbohydrate, 5,000 calories in a day. And if you think, you know, you might realize that's a lot of food, but when you're talking about dietary carbohydrate with low dietary fat, it's really a lot of food. So I went in and kind of on chronometer.com and kind of figured out how much food that would actually be to reach 5,000 calories and 1,000 grams of carbohydrate. So it would be, this is just an example, 1 cup of dry oats, which as you know would be close to 2 cups of cooked oats, with 8 bananas and 3 bagels. Okay, there's your breakfast. For a snack, an 8 banana and 10 date smoothie. For lunch, 2 cups of cooked rice and a cup of vegetables, steamed vegetables. For dinner, 2 cups of spaghetti and marinara sauce, 2 large potatoes. And at this point, we're still not even reaching 5,000 calories. So I added in more bagels and 3 more bagels and 8 more bananas in order to reach that goal. I think I read that right. Anyway, 5,000 calories, 1,000 grams of carbohydrates. That's a lot of food. And so at this point, when they studied people and gave them, you know, this much carbohydrate, yes, their bodies were able to convert carbohydrate into fat. But the rest of the time, for the standard American diet, for, you know, a typical person, de novo lipogenesis rarely occurs in humans. It just rarely occurs. And so the question then is, then why are we so overweight? Why do we have an obesity epidemic in our country? Is it the carbohydrate that's making people fat, or is it something else? And so we look at, we take a look at our foods. We can start by looking at junk foods, for example. So with, you know, in junk foods, you've got a lot of carbohydrate, you know, sugar, you've got fat, chemicals, flavor enhancers. And we like to say that, you know, like things like cookies and cakes and all that kind of stuff. Carbohydrate makes us fat, but what else is in there besides the carbohydrate? Well, there's fat in there, right? And we can take a look at other foods like, you know, potatoes, for example. They're villainized all the time that they make us fat, or I can't even look at potatoes or they'll make us fat. Well, again, what else is in the potato besides the carbohydrate? Well, nothing if you're just eating a potato, but how many of you just eat a potato? Okay. I do sometimes, but I like stuff on my potato too. Most of us put sour cream and butter and cheese and bacon, you know, on our potatoes, or we eat potatoes in the form of potato chips or in the form of French fries, deep fried in oil. So again, is it the carbohydrate that's making us fat, or is it something else? Is it the fat that's making us fat? So do carbohydrates make you fat? I know a lot of people claim that they do. So this is something just to think about. One is the de novo lipogenesis. You can look that up. There's been a lot of studies on it, a lot of articles done on it. And the other is just to think about this idea that what else are you eating with your carbohydrate? Are you putting cream cheese on your bagel? Are you putting meat and cheese on your pizza? Most people do. Are you putting, you know, if you're eating pasta Alfredo, super high in fat. So is it the carbohydrate in that pasta, or is it the butter and the cream and the cheese, you know, in the sauce? Is it the carbohydrate that makes you fat, or is it the fat that makes you fat? Okay, so, and then the other thing I wanted to talk about was this idea that sugar is addicting. And I'm not here to say that sugar is not addicting. There's been a lot of books. Again, it's one of those things that a lot of people are talking about right now. There's been doctors and experts that have written books on the subject. Does a chemical process take place in the brain that causes us to want and crave sugar? Well, yeah. But again, going back to what carbohydrate is, the body assimilates that carbohydrate from your food, converts it to glucose, and it's used as energy. And so it's a requirement. If, you know, for us to live and to have energy and to live our lives, we need that sugar. And so it's almost like saying air is addictive or water is addictive. Is sugar addictive? Yeah, I suppose. And yeah, we do. We get these cravings, don't we? I used to be the worst. I used to keep cookies in my freezer at work. I had stashes of candy bars in my file cabinet, little Hershey's Kisses and things like that. And pretty much on a daily basis, I gotta have sugar. I need sugar. I just would have this craving, right? And I gotta get my sugar, and I would eat the cookies, and oh, it tastes so good. So yeah, we definitely have that craving. But again, why is that? Is it because I haven't eaten all day? Is it because I've just been eating, you know, junk food all day and I haven't gotten any nutrients in my body? We have to remember that the body requires calories, but it also requires nutrients, and it requires water, and it, you know, it requires vitamins and minerals and fiber. And so, you know, if you're giving your body junk, if your diet is kind of crappy, then it's going to talk to you and it's going to tell you it's hungry. It can't always distinguish between, you know, what's healthy and what's not healthy. It's just going to tell you that it's hungry because those needs haven't been met. Those caloric or those nutrient needs haven't been met. And so yeah, I used to crave. I was just like, oh, I gotta get some sugar. I need some sugar. So when I went on, here's just a little bit about me, a little testimony about me. When I went on a diet known as Raw Till 4, I did it for 9 months. That's how I started my vegan journey, was on the diet called Raw Till 4, where you eat a lot of raw fruit for breakfast and lunch, and then you eat a cooked vegan meal for dinner, and you eat as much as you want. And in fact, in this particular diet, they encourage a lot of food, more than I could ever eat. It's why I didn't stay on the diet. It was just, for me, it was too unrealistic to eat that much food. I felt like I was force feeding myself. Nothing against the diet, because I know a lot of people are on it and they're thriving on it. So it just didn't work for me. I switched and did a different style of vegan diet. Anyway, while I was on the Raw Till 4 diet, not only did I experience a lot of healing and weight loss, but it eliminated my cravings for sugar in particular, because I was eating so much fruit. And so my body then therefore had no need to send that message to me, you know, eat the food, eat the sugar, you know, we need calories, because I was meeting that need, you know, probably above and beyond. And so, you know, I could be at work and the donuts could come in and the cookies and the cakes. We always have all kinds of stuff like that at work all the time. And I could just walk right by it. It was just the easiest thing ever. And here I went from, you know, craving sugar every single day to just walking right by it and not eating it for 9 months, because I was eating so much dietary sugar in the form of fruit. Anyway, so is sugar addicting? Yeah, I suppose it is. You know, particularly when you're talking about refined sugars, processed, you know, white sugar, white flour, high fructose corn syrup. So you know, these foods have little to no nutrient. You know, there's calories there, but are there any nutrients? So when you start, you know, and this is the thing, we have to distinguish between good calories and bad calories, good carbohydrate, excuse me, and bad carbohydrate. All carbohydrate are going to give you fuel. They're going to give you calories, but are they going to give you any nutrients? Are they going to give you any nutrients? And so you have to distinguish between what's good and bad. And so I just want to wrap this up really quickly by just talking about, you know, what foods are left then. When we eliminate, obviously, the meat, dairy, and eggs, and we eliminate the junk foods, we're left with all of these beautiful plant foods that, yes, they're high in carbohydrate. And I do eat bagels, and I do, if they're vegan and, you know, have no egg or dairy in them, I eat a lot of pasta. I probably eat pasta at least once a week for a meal, sometimes twice a week. But I eat potatoes, and I eat pizza. I put on, you know, a garlic sauce or a marinara sauce with all my favorite vegetables on there, and it is delicious. I eat sushi. I just don't put any seafood in there. I put vegetables in there, and it's delicious. I eat, you know, rice and curried vegetables. There are so many foods in the plant kingdom. I eat a lot of raw fruits that are left over. Once you eliminate, you know, the animal foods and the junk foods, you're left with, yes, a high carbohydrate diet, but there's a lot of variety, and the food is really quite delicious. If you, you know, if you don't believe me, I would like to show some pictures here, but that's just not my thing. I like to shoot my videos and upload them and go to work. I don't have time to add a lot of pictures and do a bunch of editing, but you can go over to any vegan's Instagram, anyone that has an Instagram that's vegan, and you'll see hundreds and thousands of pictures of what they eat in a day, and you'll see that the food looks amazing, and it's delicious. So you're not going to be missing out on anything if you want to, you know, experiment with a high carb diet, with a high carb plant-based diet, and see, you know, if it's something that works for you. All right, so that's it. If you will, if you've had any experience with high carb diets, post below here on the Up Your Game Facebook page. If you're not a member of the Up Your Game Facebook page, I'll put the link below. But if you've had any experience with high carb diets, please share, whether it's good or bad. If you're like me and you experience, you know, healing and energy and weight loss on a high carb plant-based diet, share below, give us your experience. And if you're the other, you know, if you had a bad experience on a high carb diet, I really want to hear about it. I really do. As a student at IIN, for myself and for the rest of us here, you know, this is the cornerstone of our school is called bio-individuality, which means what works for one person might not necessarily work for someone else. And so, and they even, to the point where they say, you know, what is one person's medicine is another person's poison. And I can't imagine a plant-based diet being bad for anybody. Yes, with some people, maybe you have to avoid gluten, or maybe you have particular food allergies. You know, I grew up with, one of my best friends was allergic to mangoes, of all things. It's my favorite fruit. What a travesty. You know what I mean. Anyway, and then I will also link below a link to the Institute for Integrative Nutrition. I've had a couple people ask me about the school that I'm attending and what it's about. So, you know, I'd be happy to answer any questions, but I'll link a little link there below that kind of, it does a summary of the school and what their philosophies are and all of that kind of information. So that's it. All right, I am going to take off. I hope you have an awesome day, and thanks for watching.